Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So I am from Denmark, but I have been in Switzerland for 15 years and have lived in various cities in Switzerland, and my children have a Swiss passport, so there's a big part of my heart that belongs to Switzerland.
Okay. And growing up in Denmark, when you were a child, did you think that one day you'd be running your own business? Did you already feel business oriented as a kid?
Yeah, so my parents run a business, a retail business, and I've always been part of that. So there's always been a part of me that was an entrepreneur, and I have been building shops or been part of rebuilding shops when I was very, very young. But when I was a teenager and in gymnasium, I remember saying, I will never be an entrepreneur because that's too much work. But at the end of the day, here I am. And
right. Yeah. And how did that, besides initially discouraging you from being an entrepreneur, how do you see that shaping who you are today, seeing your parents, and how did that influence you?
Oh, it influenced me a lot, I think in many, many positive ways. It was just natural. I remember my father always saying that work has to be fun. So I always had that as a criteria for anything that I did, that it had to be fun.
Right.
I left some companies when it was no longer fun, so I think that has definitely influenced me a lot. Also the flexibility. There was always something going on, there was always something you do. I remember deciding deliberately to take another route in my at school because I thought I know enough about business. At a very young age I need to learn something else. So yes, it has influenced me quite a lot.
And since you felt you weren't going to run your own business, you didn't want to be an entrepreneur, what did you want to do? As a child, what was your ambition?
Yeah, as a child, I really wanted to be a professional soccer player. I played a lot of football or soccer. I also wanted to be a journalist. I remember wanting to explore the world. I wanted to be a lawyer, because I wanted to stand up for something. I did do luckily I did a 1 week kind of test when you're in like 8th or 9th grade with a law firm, and I realized no, law is not for me. And then I went on to go study business at the university, also because I felt I wanted to leave Denmark. Or not leave Denmark, but have an international career. And I feel that business was actually the area where you could do that the easiest.
Okay. So the company you started now, Think Yellow, is this your first company?
It's my first company, yes. Yes, it's my first company. I have been part of, it's because I feel I'm an entrepreneur and I have been part of building companies, but this is the first one where I'm owning it, or owning it together with my co-founder.
So it's not your first entrepreneur experience as a startup company, but it's the first one that you are leading and founding?
Yes.
Okay. And how did that come about? What is Think Yellow?
Yes, so Think Yellow is, in short, we are a SDG 5 catalyst, you can say. So an SDG 5, I mean, I think the audience here will know what that is, the UN Sustainability and Development Goals 5, and number 5 is gender equality. And so that's really what we're doing. We're trying to advance equality. How it came about was really that I had read a lot about gender lens investing. And I don't come from the finance industry. I've been in retail, I've been in marketing, and I have worked, and I still do also, for a digital agency. But when I read about gender lens investing, I got so fascinated. And I just thought, this is so incredible. Why this must be big? And I started asking around in banks, whether I could invest with this mindset, and I did not get really a very good reply. And then out of that came the idea that, but if nobody does it, it's maybe a business opportunity. And this was around the time that I met my co-founder, Mette, and I met her at a networking event. I knew that she had been 20 or many years in finance and in impact investing, or a lot in sustainable investing. So I just started discussing gender lens investing with her. And I said to her, Mette, you're always focusing on all the 17 development goals. Shouldn't you focus on number 5? And then we started talking. And then we decided, you know what, we're gonna build a company with this vision in mind to move money towards equality.
Okay. And how did the name come about? What's in the name?
Yeah, so we wanted it to be broad in the sense that well, yellow for us is a few things. For me, it's a lot about the opportunities and the positivity and the warmth and the energy, ideas. And I think the whole area of gender lens investing, or the whole area of looking at opportunities with a gender lens, is so incredible big and nice. So that's the idea part. So that was for me very strong. For Mette, it was very strong also that when we spend money or when we invest money, it's important to stop up. So it's not just red, no, don't go there, but it's also not just green. It's a bit of like stop up and think about what you do, because actually every single time we spend money, whether it's buying something or investing, we make a choice and we impact the world around us.
Okay. So taking a moment to analyze and inspect and see if that's really the right opportunity or the best way forward.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been doing this now?
So 1.5 years.
Okay. And you went through the F10 Accelerator Program as well, or did it start there, or you used that to boost the initiative?
It pretty much, let's say, I'm not sure where we would have been today if it hadn't been for F10, because after I met Mette, we had been talking about this idea, which really literally was a napkin idea at the time. And then there was a deadline at F10, which was 2 weeks later. So I called her and I said, Mette, we have been talking about this for a few, on the napkin and over coffee, but now in 2 weeks there is a deadline. And I think we should apply. And she's a little bit, it's in 2 weeks. And I'm like, yeah, but we probably won't get in because there's a lot of companies that want to be part of this accelerator program. So and
what is F10?
So F10, thank you for that. F10 is a fintech accelerator and incubator program here in Zurich, which is organized by SIX and PwC and a lot of banks like Julius Baer and Balois. So it's a accelerator program in fintech. And so we decided to apply, and to our surprise, we got accepted. And then, and it was really, we did it consciously in the sense that, hey, we will apply, the application process will be good for us to focus our idea. And if we want to do this, it's good with the ecosystem around.
Yeah. And it's a 4-month program?
It's a 6-month program. Yeah. Okay. So we did get in, and then it was also clear. Now we're doing it. Of course. It was a bit, if they believe in us, and if we do this, then we really exist. Right. And we both had to reshuffle other priorities that we had in our lives because it's a full-time program. So during the F10 accelerator, that was just the two of you, or was there more people involved? There were more people involved. We were incredibly lucky to work with a lot of incredible people. we have pivoted many times throughout this 1.5 years, and throughout that period of time, especially the first year, we had a lot of people working on specialized in specific different areas, coming in and out of the team.
Okay. Maybe just you said it's about gender equality when it comes to investing, but maybe do you have an elevator pitch or a very short sales pitch? What is your product, or what is your concept, or what is it that exactly that you do?
Yes.
In an elevator pitch concept.
I don't like that question. I don't like that question because we had pivoted a lot. I will say that. So I call us Catalyst. What we're currently doing, and our business model currently, is we primarily work on projects together with others that have the same vision to advance gender equality. So sometimes that's as a consultant, sometimes we co-create things. So it's that's what we're doing currently. When we started out, we wanted to build a digital platform. Okay. We also did that only to realize that probably was not the best idea in the Swiss market anyway.
So for example, you have a project with 2 big corporates right now. That's Butler, right, and Julius Baer.
Yes, Butler and Julius Baer.
Yeah. So, is it the same concept in both cases?
It's similar.
So what is it that you do with them?
Yes. So basically, you look at the area of gender lens investing is basically it's a type of impact investing, if you want, just really focusing primarily on equality, gender equality. And there are many good reasons.
So it's not necessarily focused on female entrepreneurs. It's about equality.
Equality,
okay.
And it was really a big difference in that, and that was very important to us. You can look at, you can take a gender lens, like really literally looking through a lens, and look at female entrepreneurs. Yeah. Could be one way. Another way is to look at products or services that will benefit equality. And a third way, which is what we have been focusing mostly on, is looking at looking at corporations and looking at the balance between men and women in organizations. And this is what we have done with Julius Baer and with Balois, because we know that companies that have a gender balance perform better. We are more innovative if we are diverse. We have a better governance, less risk. We are more customer-centric. Hence, it should show on the bottom line. And a lot of companies have proven that. McKinsey, PwC, EY, etc. So what we said is, well, in that case, it makes sense to invest in companies that are gender diverse. And that's now possible. Okay. Because basically now, since 2 years, there's been, or since a few years, but really over the last years, there's been done a lot of data gathered around how our companies, and I'm particularly talking about publicly listed companies of a certain size, where we can actually go in and say, how is the gender diversity? And that is, for instance, in the board composition, is the management composition. But a very important point that we look at is also paternity leave, because it's such an important part. Also flexible work and some different areas. So there's a lot of different criteria. Okay. And what we have done in this case is then, we're really dot connectors, connecting different things together. So we were taking the data from a company called Equilibre that is doing this data, and then analyzing that, and then out of that, looking at, okay, for instance, with Balois, we said, why don't we take the 60 best gender equal European companies, put them into a type of a fund, and make it possible for Swiss clients to invest into that if they have a third pillar pension product. So that's what we have been doing with them.
I see. Yeah, that's very interesting. That's
So
quite it's unique, I think, and it benefits a wide range of people, not only those who are looking to invest, but also the companies who are doing their part to bring that balance. And like you said, at the end of the day, they have a bigger chance of success because of the balance and the equality.
yes.
So it's a good sales pitch from the investor side, and it's making a positive impact.
Yes.
Speaking of impact, because your mission is closely tied to empowering female founders, besides the investment, the gender lens investing part, what's another area that you would wish to have an impact in?
Yes, I would really love to have an impact in product and services, actually, that can benefit equality. I think there is an incredible amount of opportunities there. Another area that interests us a lot is in the whole immigrant and refugee area. Actually, the women that come are often having even a more challenge. So that's an area that we would like to have an impact on. And then it is really about, and we have done a lot of work around that, for instance, together with the Swiss Impact Investment Association. We've worked with them to really bring this topic on the agenda when we are having different investment conferences, or because it's often forgotten. Also, even within the impact space and the sustainable investing space, we mostly, and not to say that it's not important, because it's hugely important, but we mostly speak about the environment. And we need to speak about the environment, and we should do it a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
But we should not forget the other part as well.
Of course.
The social part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And from your experience, from what you've seen, or from the companies you've evaluated, do you see or what's the biggest difference you see between male and female founders?
So I see, I think, well, there's one very big difference. Actually, when we talk about the type of enterprises, I think this is the biggest difference. The type of enterprises that women start compared to the type of enterprises that men start. There is a difference. So women are more likely to start social enterprises than men, or think with a purpose. And that's, we see that quite clearly. Another area is that we don't see so many female startups that are only female, which I think at the end of the day is a good thing, because it's at the end it's the balance actually. Right. We don't see that as much of a concern when men start, because it seems
it's normal to have a male-only company.
Yes, yes. So, and I think women, we're a little bit irritating in the sense that we ask more questions up front. Sometimes that hinder us to take bold moves or take a lot of risk, because we want to know more, and sometimes the more you know, it's not a good idea. So I think those are the three biggest differences I see.
And in your experience right now in starting your own company and building Think Yellow, what's one of the biggest lessons you've learned in that, or something that stood out the most to you? Or what was the biggest surprise?
Well, I think I'm always surprised that everything takes longer than you think. But that shouldn't be a surprise, because I did know that before. I'm also, I think one of the biggest learnings that I have is, one of the most important things is really to, I think it's quite important to be very clear on also the mission. That has held our team together, or my co-founder and I together, because you will naturally come across a lot of challenges. So, and we have pivoted 3-4 times, I think, in 1.5 years, which is a lot. And that, I don't know, I think if it's a lot or not, but that does create a lot of uncertainty. So I think one of the biggest learnings, and we did that a lot, we did talk a lot up front, how do we do, what are the values, so maybe we did the female thing of having a lot of conversations up front about values of each other, and I think that has been very, helpful later on.
Okay. If anyone has a question as well, just raise your hand and Selena.
I'm interested to hear how you pivoted actually, and what was the reason for each of your pivots?
Yes, so the first one is the one that hurts me the most, in the sense that we had a vision to create a beautiful digital and later also multi-channel space where it would be possible to have all investments that had a gender lens. So whether it be female founders or whether it would be publicly listed company or funds in one place, and build a beautiful experience. Because I think that since coming from retail and having done a lot to get women to shop, we actually do shop. I mean, we hold 80% of the purchasing power, and we do 80% of the decisions in retail. But when it comes to finance, we don't. So one of my hypothesis was, if you would change the landscape, you would also automatically tap into a market that's more untapped. When we then started, coming from the non-finance sector, and my co-founder, she kept saying that it's not possible, but I said, impossible is nothing, come, we can do this. We mixed the asset classes a lot. And then we wanted to build it and start with the laboratory Switzerland. So and we basically figured out that from a legal perspective and the restraints, maybe we could do, we couldn't do it. So we decided to only look at stocks. And then we made a robo-advisor. That was the pivot one. So we built a robo-advisor with this impact on, which was possible because some product came into the market. But we have robo-advisors in the market. We just made a themed robo-advisor. And then we realized a lot of the connection that we felt and a lot of the experience that we wanted to provide to the client was not there. Because again, it's also quite mechanical. So after we had built it and it worked, we realized no. And then we started working with, then we started saying, yeah, but a huge problem in this industry is that there are not enough products. Actually, that was the first thing we realized when we wanted to build the original platform. We realized that, oh my God, I cannot send the money anywhere, because I can go to my bank advisor, or I could go and I can say, I want to invest in gender equality, and they would look at you like, you do what? What do you mean? What is that? Or they know what it is, but how? So we realized you cannot really invest. There's not enough products in the market. And the ones there were, they were then you could buy them in the US or other places, but they were not traded here. And that's why we said, okay, but we were probably too early. We need to work with the financial partners to ensure that we have more products in the market. And from 1 year ago, there has now maybe been launched 10 in this time. And before that, there were maybe 2 or 3.
So 10 is what's 10 in Europe?
In Europe, yeah. Or, yeah, which now you can trade in more places than just Europe. But a lot of it was in the stock market, or with very, very few before a few years ago. And that was also because we didn't have the data on publicly listed companies. Then you could invest in, for instance, a microfinance. You could also invest in female founders. But a lot of those projects we also discussed, and that was then for a certain type of investor, an institutional investor. So we could not really bring that all into one platform. And so we decided to really focus on equities, on stocks, and then working with the industry to build more products. And we're happy that others have followed this year.
So do you see it as you kind of brought the idea into the marketplace, or maybe shed more light on it?
Yeah, we have not. The idea was there because I had read about the idea, and there is an excellent book called Gender Lens Investing that I had read, and basically is the Wikipedia at the time, and basically had everything that's done within 150 pages. So,
but more from a theory perspective.
And the few products that were in the market were also mentioned, but it was very limited, which is also why we thought if we bring it all together, it's actually possible. But then, what I think we have done, and where a lot of people in that now that are really trying to cast light on this whole area. And in 2 weeks, there is the first really global gender smart investing conference in London. We will also be there, and there will be everyone basically that is in the industry will be there.
It's talking about that and finding out ways of pushing it forward.
Yes, so it's growing, but it's
Is that the first conference on the topic?
So it's a big conference, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I'm a publicly traded company in Europe. How would you define, how can I redefine my firm to fit your criteria? What is the definition of a genderless publicly traded company?
Yes, so we would look, we take the framework that Equilib has created, which I think is quite nice, and we look at the 4 blocks, one of them being the composition of the team. So how is the balance between men and women in the board, but also in the management level and in the overall. Then we're looking at a whole another block, which is more around the services we give to our employees, such as equal pay, such as the paternity, maternity, flexible work. Then there's a whole area around policies, also that you can bring in, which in some cases are law. But the 2 main ones we really look at is, of course, the composition where we can count, but also those policies around what are we doing? What are we doing with pay? What are we doing with, are we public about it? Are we actually measuring it? Just by measuring it.
Right, one of the metrics, right?
This is a metrics, right? Because it says a lot. It says a lot about, because of it, what we've seen a lot is not that we want to treat, I mean, mostly when we also work with companies sometimes about how are they doing inside, and mostly it's not that we don't want to be unequal, but we are biased. All of us. I'm biased too. And when we measure, it's getting done, right? So if we measure it, we also see, and that's one main part really to do that.
Which firm did you end up investing in? Which firm did you end up buying the stock of?
So I have, with the products we created, for instance, with Julius Baer, and I invested in that, is more where we created 3 actually certificates that is a basket of gender balance companies. So for instance, a basket of the 30 best Nordic companies, one of, so...
These are ETFs?
These are not ETFs, these are certificates. There are ETF in the market. UBS have created one, Luxor has created one from France, which also is only 1 year old. Really? They're only 1 year old, and their product were the ones that allowed us to build the robo-advisor, because we built that on ETFs. And when we started 1.5 years ago, there was only one ETF, which was in the US, and it only looked at, was not tradable in Switzerland, and it only looked at board composition and not the whole range, which they couldn't. And I think it's an excellent product, and they were the first ones to do it. But they could not look at other data because we did not have data. If you go to the other data providers, they don't really look at gender. They look at other areas, but they maybe count women in the board. And that doesn't really say how well you're doing inside your company on equality.
Do you know about the EDGE certification?
Yes.
Are you working with them?
We're not, we're recommending them a lot, and one of the criteria in the data is also whether a company is EDGE certified. So it's a Swiss company that certifies companies on these metrics too. So that's a good indication, of course, of how well the company is doing. But what would be very nice if everybody was certified, it would be maybe wrong to only invest in the ones that are best in the certification, because then you are not having the whole mass yet. But I think they do excellent work.
It'll be very interesting when you get more data to see how those companies are doing against the indexes.
Yes, we have that data. I can share that with you. Yeah. Yeah, it's I can share that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we actually do see some very nice performance.
I should think so.
Yeah. So, and I mean, it's one of the reasons, I mean, the banks are not just doing this because they think it's a beautiful idea, right? Yes. So, and I mean, this is one of the reasons we also really liked it, because...
Well, that's not to cut you off, but there is this, actually in the last few weeks I've had several discussions about impact investing, and a lot of people think that impact investing falls under philanthropy. But the fact of the matter is that most impact investments have a higher return than your typical VC. And it's just something that's not always, because what you're doing has a serious impact, but it's not just helping people.
No.
There is a business model, and there is, you are making money off of it.
Yes.
So it is having an impact, it is having a return, it is making a difference, and that's I think a very amazing part of the impact investing area is to recognize it's not philanthropy has its place, it's very good, it's important, but impact investing is about getting a return on your investment and helping companies that are making a difference to continue to succeed and have a bigger impact and make more money.
Yes.
Can you also identify the opposite, gender biased companies?
So you mean that companies...
The worst companies.
The worst company, yeah, I could. But I could identify them, but I won't.
Now that's very interesting.
Yes.
Those two.
Yes. And we have that has been done also, and you do see a difference. You do see a difference. And I mean, there are some, there's a joke going on in the industry, what would have happened with Lehman's brothers, you probably have heard that, yeah? So, I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that it is a smart decision to have a mix, right? And that actually also goes beyond gender. It's just the one we can globally really measure. Huh?
Maybe you cannot share the blacklist, but what is really interesting is to understand the delta in performance between.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
We can maybe afterwards get it more into detail. You can have a little discussion around that.
We can have a discussion around that.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. 3 questions. You mentioned fun is important for you and the performance. I want to know what is, in this point in time in your startup, what make you feel fun? That's number 1.
Yes.
Second question is, what is in your head, in your perspective, if companies, governments, and social interaction between women and men and women would be equal? How you see the balance? And the number 3 is, what is behind your effort, your startup, your energy putting there? Is feminist or feminism, or is fairness? That's my 3 questions.
Yes. So I will start with the last one. It's fairness. And it just happens that I think when you are a woman, this is a topic that has been part of our lives in one way or the other. So it's very close to our heart. It took a while for me to convince my co-founder that it's our focus, because we could focus on all the 17 UN goals they're all beautiful and require some attention. We decided to focus specifically on that from a fairness, and I am a feminist. I'm not afraid to say that, although, but it doesn't. I love men, no? So it's not really. It really is about the equality in that, and so that's the fairness part. The first one was about what's fun. Really, the people we work with. We're now going into some new projects. They're not signed yet, so I can't talk about them. But we're really looking at what people are we working with. Because at the end, it's business is people and people are business. And that's one of the things that we have seen is it just makes it a lot more fun to get up every day to work with great people.
You spend more time at work than with your family, so
Exactly.
you gotta like them.
You gotta like them. And I think that's extremely important. It's also to have fun. I mean, you mentioned family. I do have a family. I have 2 children, and finding that balance is part of the. It's not always fun, but the second question was, help me again.
What is in your mind if equal decision,
Yes.
balance between men and women would
Yes.
be on the table?
Yes. If we were not biased and we had a complete kind of equality, I actually believe we would take more care of each other and also the environment. But that is under the condition that we're in touch with ourselves. And that is men and women. Because if we just create equality and make women, and not like men, because there are many men, there's a big difference, but if we're too the same, and we could also be equal, and we all only had money in head, and I only want to move ahead, and I only want to, that's not gonna make the world any better place. So the two is but I do believe actually if it was not a question and we didn't have to position us and we didn't have this man-female tension that often happens, we would be in a better place because we wouldn't have to we would be more conscious in the decisions that we make. I'm quite convinced of that, and I'm quite convinced that we would have an incredible spillover effect to a lot of the other SDGs. And we've seen it in the developing world. It's very obvious. If you give 100 francs or $100 to a woman, 70% goes back to the family. With a man, it's 20. I don't think that the numbers would be like that in this part of the world, because I think we women, and we are also, we would spend a lot more on ourselves than probably in that part of the world. But I think if gender really didn't matter, we would be much more conscious as people, and we would take a breath and stop a little bit more and think about what we're doing.
Thank you very much.
Ian.
Yeah, I just had a question regarding the Nordic countries versus Switzerland. I mean, in your hierarchy of top performers,
Yes.
wouldn't all of them be in Norway, Sweden, Denmark?
A lot of them are. Out of the top 200, there are like 30 from that. So if you take the Norwegian companies, 60% or something of the eligible companies are in the top 200. Of the US companies that won 2%. And I'm from Denmark, and I'm from the Nordic, and maybe it's one of the reasons why I have lived in the US, I've lived in Asia, and also came to Switzerland 15 years ago. So maybe one of the reasons why this has touched me more, because when I was in school 20 years ago, I wrote a paper saying we can stop talking about gender equality because we have reached it. admittedly, I have also learned we have not reached it in Denmark either, because when you later in life you will notice. But it is true, there is an overrepresentative of Nordic companies, and for a good reason, because we for a longer period of time have been focusing on this subject.
I was wondering about your positioning and visibility, because the UN Global Goals are clearly global and they're spanning such a wide range. Do you have any support network or any outreach? Is the UN in touch with you? How do they know that what you're doing is supporting SDG 5?
Yes, it's a good question. We were going to go there for a speech one time, but then it actually correlated with an engagement in Dublin, so we couldn't go. But we are in contact with a lot of different organizations. But whether or not they really know what we do, I don't know. I haven't called them and said, listen to what I have to say. But
do you have others that are doing sort of what you do, so that you have that support of keeping in touch with them and kind of sharing that allegiance in a way?
I think there is and I'm really looking forward to go to London in a few weeks for this Gender Smart Investment Conference, because there is an incredible willingness to collaborate, despite the fact that some could be competitors. But we don't see ourselves as competitors, because this cake is like this. So it's not about how much of the cake can I get, it's about let's make the cake bigger. And I think there is a very big agreement about that. So we are supporting each other, and that's very nice. Yeah? That's also part of making it fun to work, because
the collaboration aspect.
The collaboration and the amount of different people that have tried things and done things, and the passion that lies in most of the people that have done is quite incredible.
Yeah.
So if 100% is total gender equality, at what percentage are we in Switzerland, and what do you think is humanly possible, like in Switzerland or in the world?
Well, I don't see any reasons why we shouldn't be able to have equality as a whole, although the predictions of the World Economic Forum is that's not going to happen in my children's lifetime. But there is an index of where Switzerland is. I can't remember. There is actually, if you look at the World Economic Forum, they actually do stats, and Switzerland is not doing so well in the European ranking. I visited the National Museum on Tuesday evening, and they have an exhibition around the '68 movement, and there is a little piece in the exhibition that is around the women in Switzerland. Switzerland was one of the, as everybody know, late with the voting, but a lot of that is from also the direct democracy. So so I think it will take a little bit of time. But Switzerland, in the 15 years I've been here, has also increased and changed tremendously. So I think there is, I'm very positive.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone about that from in the Swiss startup ecosystem. 8 years ago, no one outside of Switzerland thought that there were startups in Switzerland. Yeah. And now it's been just this boom in a very short amount of time with the corporates, the government, so many different people. I think it's the same thing from the gender perspective. It's hasn't blossomed yet, but the interest is there to catch up, and they see, I guess, the Swiss do like their money, so if you can make more money by maybe it's not the right reason, but it's
fine with me.
If it brings about the right results, then why not?
Yeah, and I think there is. I think I think we like to see what's going on. And I think I have had very positive, many positive feedbacks also, and I think it's good that we are it's a very diverse place, Zurich, and that is helping a lot.
Speaking of money, how did you finance? As every entrepreneur, they have to start somewhere. And especially here in Switzerland, it is funding your new company or your startup is always an interesting challenge. How did that work out for you? Did you have investors? Was it privately funded?
Yeah, so we are bootstrapping and we are privately funded. I do have other engagement on the side, so does my co-founder. So we are self-funded.
Okay. Would you advise other people, like if someone at the end of F10 of your 6 months said, we want to invest in you, would you have taken investment early on, or do you think bootstrapping as long as possible makes more sense?
I think that completely depends on the business model.
Yeah.
One, I mean, I would like to bootstrap a little bit longer because I like to decide. I think we have a more freedom to move that way. But again, if I could show this early on, I mean, then maybe it would be different. And right. I think that I also have seen that there is I would more, whether yes or no, I would more ask the question, what type of investor is it? Because I've seen there's a big difference. What is the purpose and why are people invested? Because you can also have incredible investors that has also helped with opening doors or be sparring partners, and I think that is a critical. I wouldn't want someone in the board without having a good connection.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
What are you looking for next? Like, who are your counterparts in like the financial institutions, or what kind of partners are you looking for going forward, and what are your plans for 2019?
So we're really looking to work with partners who have where we share the mission, and right now we're working with 2-3 different options going forward, and I believe, I'm quite confident that one of them will materialize. But that's really the main thing we look at. Are we aligned on the mission? Can we have fun? Can we have impact? Can we make some money? It's nice too. At one point, it's nice.
How big is your team?
So currently, we are only Mette and I, my co-founder and myself. We have been more, and but right now, since we have more working on a consulting model, we are the two of us, but we have a large network and that we pull in whenever, depending on, and a lot of partners, depending on every single assignment or every single project that we work on.
So then you'll hire for a project, or
we'll hire, or we prefer to collaborate with a lot of different parties, because at the end we are very much, what we do is connecting the dots and bringing people together, and out of that creating new ideas or innovations. So we cannot only be linked to one or two, because we don't want that then we only do this. We want to be flexible depending on the partner we work with.
Okay. And when it comes to working with getting a corporate partnership, it's not the easiest, to be a small fish, in a big pond. What recommendation or suggestion would you have for other entrepreneurs who are looking to connect with corporates?
So it was a big help for us that we have worked in that space ourselves. So knowing how such organizations work. If you do not have that, I really think a big help, and also was even a really big help for us, is through using the ecosystem that exists in Switzerland. An accelerator program for that is very good, because it does allow you access, and it does allow you to bounce ideas very early together with the corporates, which if you do it later and you walk in, it might be more difficult. And then you need to just, no is not no, huh? It's in this case. But it's really finding the right person who believes in that and you cannot sit and be it's this person in the hierarchy or in the. It's really the right person who believes in what you do and the project and the idea and is willing to take risk and want to move it forward, because it's also complicated to work with our startups. We don't have a lot of things that they're used to when they work with other parties. So it's about finding that willingness on both sides, otherwise it won't work.
Of course. And the different, I guess, things that have come up in the media in the last year or two related to female founders, or, for example, the Me Too media thing that came up and the whole initiative around that. Did that help shed some light? Did that help, or did that influence in some way, in a positive way, or how did that affect what you are striving for?
It does. I think it's a good thing overall. There's always maybe some things that go a little far, but I think it's been a necessary thing to have focus on it. So I think it helped. And I think it's important. We had some conversation at the apéro around how much should we help women and quota and female founders, and how, and we talk a lot about gender equity, and I think it's going to be a little bit technical, but the difference is basically that equality would be that we are both looking over a fence, and I'm this much. I'm actually not this much less tall than you, but equality would be that we are standing both on the ground, and you can look over the fence, and the woman cannot look over the fence, right? And equity would be, well, you put a little stool there that we can both look over the fence. And the reason, so one of the reasons why, and we believe in that, and some of the reasons why we sometimes have to actually promote women a little bit more than actually would be even equal, is because the system has been built on traditional patriotic principles. And that's nobody's fault. You know, that's just the way it is, based on heritage, where women did not have the rights. So this is one of the, why I think it is still necessary to talk about it and highlight it. But of course, everyone needs to do a good job. I mean, that's clear.
Do you have a hard time promoting that message to people who can see over the fence? Like if you're looking over the fence, you might not notice the people beside you. So I'm just wondering
whether it's male or female.
Male or female?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a human empathy.
Yes.
Like a lack of empathy. So
yes.
Do you have any story tools or something that you use to tell the person that can see over the fence, this is what it feels like, and this is why maybe it's better to lift everyone up?
It's coming back to the fairness question as well. The most beautiful thing is if we can get people to take an unconscious bias test, because then we will all notice, even women, how biased we are also towards our own. But that's a good one. There is even some online ones, because that you really see. And then it is, now, depending on the audience, if there are some good story, like if I speak to a company, I try to find some specific stories that resonate with them. Because this is not just men, women, this is also color, it's race, it's religion, it's other areas as well, the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Was there a time in during the last year and a half there you felt it's not going to work, that it was just that you felt like quitting, that it's not going to happen? And
yes, I do think that comes once in a while, and I think this is actually one of the main reasons why it's good to not be alone when you do something like this. I don't think I would still have done this if I had been alone.
Right.
But I think that's where really I feel that having a mission or a vision that you believe in will help, and having a good team, because otherwise, yeah, it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's difficult.
And what advice would you give to a younger Karina?
Yeah, just do it. I will give a little, but I think you have to experience and learn it. But I think some of the exercises, do a little bit more yoga.
I'm still applying that on myself as I grow with my own business. So, yeah.
And the opposite of that, have you had any moments where you felt like, you've completely crushed it, like some big success?
Yes, we have had that also, where we're better at clapping the other one on the shoulder than oneself. Maybe that's another one what would I give advice for the younger me, to clap yourself on the back and celebrate the small successes, right? This is, that's important.
And what do you do to celebrate? What do you do to relax for some downtime?
So I really try to spend more time with the family. I am spending more time in nature than I have ever done before. I also really just like to be together with friends, a good dinner, a good glass of wine, and just laugh, just have some fun. I mean, don't take it too serious. At the end of the day, it's just a business. I mean, it's just a business. I think we can tend to forget in the startup world. I mean, in the corporate world, and then you go to the startup, it's the same. We are sometimes too serious, and I think we should laugh a little bit more. At the end, it's
that's true.
It's
As an investor, how do people can have access to these funds?
Yes. So, in the case of the products that we co-created with Julius Baer, you can Google, think yellow Julius Baer, and you will find an ISIN, so you can buy that. With Baloise, you can buy it through, it's a third pillar pension product, so you can buy that through their network of brokers, or on their website you can also ask for an appointment.
But with Julius Baer is not a pension.
No, that's it's a certificate, it's called. So basically, you need a custody account, and you can buy it like you can buy any other stock. If depending on nationality or different things, but go on their website and you can find that.
We have time for one or two more questions. In the meantime, what's one mistake that you would want other entrepreneurs to avoid?
I would say one of the best things that we have done is to create a co-founding agreement. Mm-hmm. We used a Swiss lawyer called Jana, and we really created a dynamic split in the beginning of the company. We just fixed it this week after 1.5 years, and I think that has given us an incredible framework. So whenever we also had people coming in and out, we actually had a framework to work around, right, how we could deal with such questions. At the end of the day, you are walking into a relationship. It's a relationship. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, you spend more time, but now it's also money, and you might have worked together before, and we did not, but you might have worked together before, but the circumstances are not the same. Yeah. They're not the same when there's, these uncertainties are not the same. So I think that's one thing that I would do.
So already from early on, as early as possible, have
as early as possible, because exactly, because the beauty
contract actually signed.
Yeah, and the beauty around this, which is new in the startup world, the dynamic equity split, is that it's dynamic, because you cannot foresee who you need and how much who will work and how much who will contribute in the beginning. So if you just split it 50-50, or if you're 4 people, you don't know. One might want to step out, and what do you then do? So you rule, firstly, the contribution that each, but you also sit down and talk about these things, such as what values do we have? For us, it was very important to discuss what happens when you run out of money, and when is money and passion and purpose, and you cannot rule that everything in front, but at least you can have a conversation, and how much does what mean to you. I think that has been very helpful.
Yeah, if anyone's interested in that, ask myself or Karina for the contact information, because it is very valuable. I know her as well. I think it's a very very good way of setting things up at the beginning, or even if you're further along the way, but it avoids a lot of challenges further down the line.
I think it's very easy, and it's very easy when you're very passionate and you have an idea and you want to get started. It's such a good idea, let's do this, and it's very...
Figure out the details later.
And then you're always busy. You're always busy with something you have to do. So taking that time and sit down and having that conversation with a third part in the room is not a unsmart thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. So before we wrap up, I have a new series of questions.
Oh no.
These are fun. So we call them rapid fire questions, and just the first thing that comes to your mind, there's no right or wrong answers, just whatever comes to you, whatever is there.
Yeah.
What's one item that you own that you would never sell?
Item, as in...
Something that you own that you wouldn't never get rid of.
My phone?
That's fine. What is your most unusual skill?
I was a Danish champion in ricochet.
That's cool.
Yeah. See, you don't even know what it is, so it's that unusual. It's a form of squash.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's more important, strength, speed, or stamina?
Stamina.
Which historical figure do you admire?
I don't know.
Any person.
Any person.
Who's someone that inspires you?
Obama.
There you go. What's your favorite season of the year?
Summer.
When was the last time that you tried something new?
Last week.
Team or single founder?
Team.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Wine or beer?
Both.
Your favorite app?
I work for an app company. I should be careful what I say now. My favorite app, Slack.
What's something on your bucket list?
Live in Australia.
And if you could have the attribute of an animal, what would that be?
Which animal or which attribute?
Either one.
I would like to have 9 lives.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and for everything that you shared with us. Is really inspiring and a lot to learn from, and appreciate your time and being here with us. And you're still around for a little bit, so if you have any questions, right?
Yes, I'm around.
So if you have any questions, then if people have questions, feel free to talk. And thank you all for coming and joining us tonight. Ginetta for hosting us.
Thank you.